Japanese scary stories. Kurage. Sea in the mouth. This is the story when I was a junior high school student. The second half of July, when I can't wait for summer vacation. That day I was swimming all day in the sea beyond a mountain. It's not a beach. Down the steep cliff, there is a small beach known only to local children. On my free summer days, it was a place where I could find someone to play with. On that day, I played with some of my acquaintances and made my tanned body even darker. Was it just before 6 p.m. when I got out of the sea, broke up with them, and got home? Before I took a bath, I was swam and thirsty, so I poured water into the cup directly from the faucet in the kitchen and drank a lot. It was at that time. I didn't have time to think about anything. When I felt a strange feeling of strangeness, it instantly turned into a fierce nausea. I was spitting the water I just drank into the sink. My throat was sore and I couldn't stop coughing for a while. As it came out of the faucet, I thought it was fresh water without any precautions. It wasn't normal water that I swallowed. It was unquestionably salt water. When my cough finally subsided and I couldn't believe it, I put the pad of my index finger on the faucet and licked a drop of water. It tastes like the sea. It tastes the same as the seawater that I swallowed when I was drowning in the sea when I was little. But why does seawater come out of the faucet? Our water should be coming from the Waterworks Bureau, not pumping groundwater or drawing it from the mountains. It is unlikely that salt will be mixed naturally. Hey, Mom. Somehow salt water comes out of the faucet. When I called, her mother looked into her face from the living room next door. It's easy to see that this is a suspicious face of my child. Don't lie. I just prepared dinner there. Really, you see, this is salt water. I poured water into the cup and gave it to her mother. She was suspiciously smelling for a while, but she sipped her mouth, and she drank it all at once. Please take a bath with all the stupid things. You see, your hair is sloppy. My mother said so and patted my head and went back to her living room. She wasn't surprised, so I poured water from the faucet again and put it in my mouth. My tongue is numb. After all, it is not ordinary water. What does it mean? Is my mother lying? However, she was swallowed in front of her. She would overwhelm her body if she lied. He says where it is necessary to bother to tell such a lie. Perhaps because I was swimming in the ocean all day, my taste was strange. I so convinced myself. The seawater has soaked in from the outside, and my body is temporarily sick. However, even if it was a misunderstanding of taste, I felt more thirsty because I drank salt water. I stopped tap water and opened the fridge instead, and found orange juice, so I decided to drink it. Pour into a glass and drink. And I spit it out of my mouth again. Isn't it salt water? Astonishingly, I look at the liquid in the cup that still has about half left. The color and smell was definitely orange juice, but what I drank now was just plain salt water, which was clearly orange. I also tried other things. Barley tea, milk, and lactic acid bacteria drinks in the refrigerator. Even the ice in the freezer is salty. I couldn't drink anything. I was convinced that I was crazy by going to the bath and taking a shower. It's because of the water droplets that come into my mouth. My body was refreshing, but only my mouth and throat were hot, and I felt like crying. After that, I went to the hospital with my mother without eating dinner. The doctor who examined me just shook his head while listening to me. He was told that it was dysgeusia, but in that case he was told that the cause was unknown, without any changes in the internal organs that caused it. However, at that time, both doctors and parents seemed optimistic that it would not be so serious. I remembered anxiety that only I couldn't say. I don't think anyone has consciously drank a glass of seawater. Even if they were there, they would be a minority. That is not something you can drink at all. From the next day, I was admitted to the hospital and started to drink water all the time. I couldn't get rid of water by the usual method. Even if the ingredient was just water, I couldn't swallow it. Even if I drank it, I immediately vomited. It was impossible for solids to contain a lot of water. No porridge, no fruit. At the end, even my saliva felt salty, and I often vomited without drinking water. I always felt nausea and suddenly vomited on the bed and soiled the sheets many times. In addition, he had fever and diarrhea. This may be a side effect of my illness, but it was as if all of my body had gone crazy, not just a part of it. Humans can live to some extent without eating things, but if they can't drink water, they die in a blink of an eye. Only a few days after I was hospitalized, I lost a surprising amount of weight. I felt my body dry, and while staring at the ceiling, I wondered if I would die as a mummy. I thought that if this situation continued, I would definitely die. Both my mother and father came to take care of me every day. I don't usually do that, but her mother was holding my hand all the time while I was in the hospital. As she saw it, she realized that she was being taken care of. I don't want to die. For the first time in my life, I strongly thought so. One day when I was living such a life, a friend came to visit the hospital. Obviously, I was absent from school while I was in the hospital. I wonder how my parents didn't know how to explain to the school. The reason was hidden, and when I asked him later, the cause was a summer cold. The friend knew of my hospitalization when he came home to deliver the school prints. As soon as he entered the hospital room, he opened his mouth with no expression. Then, when I came to the bed where I was sleeping, he said in a sloppy tone, "I'm thin." The phrase was funny and I laughed a little. It's been a while since I laughed, and I was surprised that I was still laughing. At that time, I had no mother or father, and no other inpatients, so I and he were the only ones in the hospital room. He was a strange man with the nickname Kurage. He is a little floating in the class, like a floating in the sea. The reason is that he sees things that ordinary people cannot see. So-called self-proclaimed, visible human. I heard that one day I saw a lot of ghosts floating in his bath at home, and then I started seeing such things. However, he didn't even hear about it, and when asked about it, he said, "I'm sick." At that time, I used to play with Kurage. I had an interesting experience with him. It's really dangerous. Somehow I might die. I said so to Kurage. The word came out of my mouth more easily than I expected. Kurage was silently looking at me. His gaze follows a thin tube extending from an 4 needle stuck in the joint of his left arm. I ended up with a nutritious and moist pack above him. This isn't a summer cold. What's wrong? I talked about everything from the beginning to the present. Along the way, he listened to him without giving up or nodding. At the end of the story, he said, "Hey, just open your mouth." Mouth? Yeah. Like when you're treating your teeth, . I opened my mouth as I was told. Then Kurage bent over a little and looked into my mouth. This is salty, isn't it? The jellyfish raised his upper body. It's the sea. In your mouth. I didn't understand. Kurage nodded alone as he was convinced and turned his back on me, saying, "Then, I'm going to the sea." I didn't make sense, I just watched him leave the room with his mouth open. Shortly thereafter, a candy bag was delivered to the hospital room. The nurse said that Kurage bought it at the shop below and gave it to me. The salty candy wasn't delicious because of saliva, but I managed to eat it compared to the others. That night, I had the most nausea I've ever had. I was asleep, but I reflexively pulled a bucket by my side and smashed it inside. The expression "like a waterfall" is most suitable. It didn't fit even if I put it out. When it finally settled, I fell into bed. When I noticed, the lights in the hospital room were on, and there were a nurse, a doctor, and a mother around the bed. It seems that I was unknowingly pushing the nurse call. When I looked at it, a bucket that seemed to fit lightly in 5 liters was half filled with vomit. However, it was a terrifyingly clear liquid, probably because there was nothing in the stomach. I was surprised at how much water was still left in my body. The nurse and doctor were talking with a difficult face, and her mother gently stroked my head with a tired smile. "You can sleep." Her mother told me so, and I closed my eyes. However, I felt a sense of discomfort in my mouth. No, is it better to say that there is no sense of discomfort? For some reason, it was clean. Until now, I had only discomfort after vomiting. It was as if I had vomited everything that was bad. I tried to swallow, but my mouth was thirsty. I got up and chewed a grain of candy that I got for the daytime. Sweet. It was purely sweet without being disturbed by anything. I asked her mother to bring me some water. I'm afraid to put on my mouth. Check with a bite, the tip of your tongue. I took 2 mouthfuls, lightly put them in my mouth, and then drank them all at once. I will never forget the taste of water at that time. I never thought that just water was so delicious. Tears spilled naturally. When I think about it now, the hospitalization life was very difficult, but that was the only time I cried. I thought it was a waste to use the water I finally got for tears, but it didn't stop. Weeping, he told the doctor and his mother that his symptoms had healed. Her mother cried with me next to the doctor, making such a stupid look. The tears that came down my cheeks and into my mouth were still a little salty. Then, whatever I say, I recovered with tremendous momentum. Since the hospitalization itself was short, he quickly regained his physical strength. I couldn't attend the closing ceremony of the first semester, but I seemed to be able to enjoy the summer vacation. On the day of the closing ceremony, Kurage came to visit us again. Perhaps it was okay to leave the hospital, but it was supposed to be a while, so. Although he was hospitalized, he had already removed the 4 drip, and was feeling well as he was wandering around the hospital. Oh, it looks like it's okay. It was good. It was good. Kurage, who came into the hospital room, said so. He could look relieved, but he had that expression that he couldn't read, and his tone was plain. Kurage put a pile of prints on the bed. Homework for summer vacation. Apparently, he came to deliver this. It's refreshing. It seems to be said that it seems. When can I leave the hospital? That's right. I think I'll be back next week. After that, I talked about it for a while. I'm about to go home. The jellyfish stands up. Then I tried to get out of the hospital room, but on the way I said, "Oh, that's right," and looked back. This time, I think it's probably because of my illness that you got. I wonder if my illness got worse. I was shocked. Kurage was laughing lightly. I've been with him since the 6th grade of elementary school, but I've never seen him look like that. No, I've seen him laugh, but it was his first face to show. So I think it's better not to play with me much from now on. If you don't get close to me, your illness will heal naturally. Kurage said so and left the hospital room. When I was with him, there were times when I could see strange things, though it wasn't clear. No, it's not just visible. I could hear the voice and sometimes touch it lightly. Illness of jellyfish. Did this happen because I got infected? I was thinking for a while. I see, it may be exactly what he says. I used to think it was just fun, but it's a different story if the danger actually increases. I approached the window of the hospital room, opened it, and put my head out. The hospital room was on the 2nd floor, but I could see the entrance of the hospital from there. After waiting for a while, a jellyfish came out from the entrance. Hey. Kurage. I wasn't too far away, but I called the name out loud. The jellyfish bends its neck here. I'm not sure. This time. You managed to do it. Thank you. It was discovered that a female corpse was washed up on that beach where I often go swimming. It was the day after my symptoms subsided. I don't know the causal relationship. I couldn't prove it, but I didn't think it was irrelevant. I may have met her just because I didn't realize it. In the sea. Can you say that you have begun to see it? Of course, maybe that's the story. Well, there seem to be various things, so I stop often. Let's play once in a while. Is that okay? To be honest, I wanted to change the way I interact with him. The situation like this time is straightforward. However, I will not lose such an interesting friend myself. That was my conclusion. So, let's go camping about once during the summer vacation. I'll contact you when I leave the hospital. Kurage had been looking at me for a long time, but when I suddenly made a megaphone with both hands. Okay, he said in a loud voice for him.